Hello guys, good morning, good afternoon and good evening to you all. My name is Claudio Fonseca, I'm a real 777 pilot and today we are going to talk about RNAV approaches on the Boeing 777. So stay tuned if you want to know everything about RNAV approaches on the 777, how to fly it, how to select the modes and how to transition on the modes, for example from flight level change into VNAV approach in the RNAV approaches. So right now you can see 777-300ER in the United Airlines livery seated down on the runway 34 right at Doha Hamad International Airport. So we are going to take off from Doha Hamad International Airport and we are going to perform some approaches at this airport on this runway 34 right. So going inside our sim now, I'm going to show you our cockpit. So we have pretty much everything set for the departure. We also calculate the performance. So we are taking off from runway 34 right with takeoff to a select temperature of 45 degrees and our speeds are V1143, VR148, V2158. Coming to the terminal charts, we are going to depart from runway 34 right on the vaccine 1 echo departure. We are going to climb to 10,000 unrestricted up to position Dembo. So it's initially straight ahead to Sokin and then a right turn to Dembo. We are not going to follow these altitude constraints. We go all the way to 10,000 feet. Once we reach Dembo, we are going to take a right turn. Let me find it here. Now a right turn towards Bayan and then on Bayan we'll start Bayan 1 Romeo arrival to runway 34 right. It takes us all the way down to the position Mach-set, and from the position Mach-set we are going to shoot our RNP runway 34 right. Couple of things that I want to mention. We may start the approach from Mach-set, we may start the approach from Danik, from Emuna, from Lagma, or even from any point between Lagma and HH901. That's what is usually done on the approaches in Doha. We have radar vectors going down to 3000 and intercepting the final approach just before HH901. We are going to do a couple of them and we are going to do some approaches via Mach-set as well. I don't want you to pay too much attention for the altitudes on the arrival. I will fly the arrival at different altitudes, at different modes for you to see uh, how it happens when we are on profile, when we are above the profile, when we are below the profile. But I do want you to consider the altitudes on the approach chart. So on the approach chart, basically we have the three initial approach fix 5,000 or above, maximum 220 knots. Then position Lagma, our intermediate fix is 3,000 or above, maximum 180 knots. Then at HH901 is our final approach fix, maximum 180 knots, and that is 9.2 miles to the runway. We go down to a minimum of 434 feet on the final approach course 336 towards the runway 34 right. The touchdown elevation is 13 feet and we cross the threshold at a height of 50 feet, so that means we'll be crossing the threshold around 63 feet. You are not going to see many landings. Most of the time I'm going to do a low missed approach, and our missed approach goes all the way to Genot, and from Genot we shoot different approaches again, actually the same type of approach, the same RNP to runway 34 right in Doha, but with different modes. Okay, so basically what is important for us is the minimums 434 and the altitude at HH901 3000, maximum 180 knots. This is very important. And now, with no more delay, we are going to start our flight. So one thing I'm going to do, parking brake is already released. So we can set thrust to 55%, stable, and take off. So we have thrust ref announced on the FMA. The engines are stable, so we have the thrust set. Next thing, we look for 80 knots. Okay, we look for 80 knots. We checked. Now we wait for the V1 call. We take our hands out of the throttles, and then at rotate, we start rotating towards pitch 15.
Rotate.
And we start our rotating towards pitch 15.
Positive rate of climb.
Positive rate of climb, set gear up. We have LNAV, and we can follow LNAV and thrust ref VNAV speed on this departure. I'm going to set the autopilot now. So we have autopilot engaged, and to give you a better look on the screens, I prepared this one. So what you are going to see on this video today is our PFD on the right bottom, to the left our navigation display, and then the engine instruments and ACAS on the center, and the lower screen on the bottom on the left side. So now we retract flaps to 1. We can also already retract flaps to up. We keep the heading bug center. Now we have the flaps up. The flaps, they are coming up. We check that the engine anti-ice is in the auto position. And once we have the flaps up, we can open the after takeoff checklist. After takeoff checklist, landing gear up, flap up. After takeoff checklist is complete. We keep going, climbing to 10,000 feet. We should reach 10,000 feet by the top of climb indication, the green indication here. We are on VNAV climbing to cruise out the 10,000 feet. One thing I'm going to do inside the cockpit here, I'm going to select all our approaches auto brake 3. So auto brake 3 is already selected there. We press recall, so we have no message. The airplane is fine. We are going to set our minimums. I left it preset at battle 434, and we go on the approach phase as well, and we select our landing flaps 30 with 140 knots is the VREF approach, 145 is our approach speed. Okay, the weight is not going to change too much, so the speed will be around 140 during all our approaches, the reference speed I mean, and the approach speed at 145 for all of them. Okay, so we are still climbing. We are about 1,500 feet from our cruise level. So now we'll be reaching 9,000 feet. That is 1,000 to level off, and we have speed VNAV path. That means the throttles are commanding the speed. We select at 10,000 feet to 50 knots, and we have a VNAV path. That means the airplane is following the vertical navigation path of the FMC. Okay, so everything is set. I'm doing this first one very slow. You are going to see a couple of missed approaches later on. I'm not going to all the checklists, but right now we already have brief what we are going to do, so we can come to the descent checklist. The descent checklist says recall checked, notes, there is no note, so it's checked. Auto brake is 3, landing data VREF 30 is 140, minimum battle is 434, and approach briefing is complete, so descent checklist is complete. The next is the approach checklist. We have altimeters 1013 set 3 times, so approach checklist is complete as well. Only landing checklist to come. Okay, so from this point we are going to fly directed to position EGNU. Okay, and I'm going to delete the altitude constraints over EGNU and over Mach set. Then we have radar vectors. And from these radar vectors, we are going to intercept the final approach between Lagma and HH901. So I'm going to execute this right now. And we have an FMC message to reset Mcp altitude. That means we are close to our top of descent and the airplane wants us to set a lower altitude. I'm going to set, let's say ATC cleared us down to 5,000 unrestricted, so I set 5,000 here, and I'm going to delete the ACNUG restrictions as well, and I'm going to execute very soon. ACNUG, direct ACNUG with no restriction, and we execute. Okay, so we are right now 8 miles to start our descent. Okay, so let's say ATC asked us to leave flight level or better 10,000 feet down to 5,000 feet. I'm going to use flight level change, so thrust, flight level change speed, so the airplane will go down to 5,000 unrestricted. We can also press the altitude button to change from cruise mode to descent mode. We just started now, so the descent mode is active now. The only restriction we have is 180 knots at Lagma, 3000 or above, and the selected speed for the descent below 10,000, standard on Boeing airplanes 240 knots. Now we have hold, so the airplane or the throttles, they reach idle, and we have it on hold right now. That means I can override the throttles, increasing the thrust or decreasing the thrust back to idle as much as I want. So right now I'm going to increase some thrust. As you can see, I'm going to set around 40%. So I keep increasing and now we have 42%. Okay, so this is going to arrest our descent and we'll be maintaining 250 knots during the descent. Okay, let's say we want to descend more and I'm going to bring back to the idle. So idle, we have the thrust levers in idle now, and the airplane is going to increase the rate of descent. Remember, with flight level change, the elevators are moving up and down to keep the selected airspeed. Okay, right now we were clear directed to position CDMO, so we can select CDMO on the top and confirm the change and execute, and now we fly directed to CDMO. Cabin is ready for our landing. As you can see, there is nothing that we need to select as nav radius for the approach. It's going to be an RNAV approach, so there is no ILS for this approach or any kind of VOR or ADF that we can or that we need to monitor. So we left everything in auto. Right now we have the Doha VOR frequency 114.40 selected automatically by the plane. As you can see, Doha, the VOR is close to the runway 34 right and we are 7.4 from that position. Now, according to ATC, we got the clearance to descend unrestricted to 3,000, which is the platform altitude. So I selected 3,000 feet and we keep going down. Before Mach said, we are going to turn right on the heading 250 more or less, and then right heading 300 to intercept the final approach course and complete the RNAV approach to runway 34 right. This first approach, we are going to use level change and we'll be going down to 3,000 all the way. Once we reach 3,000 feet, then we are going to set the VNAV, which is the vertical navigation or the vertical mode that we use for RNAV approaches. And we are going to use heading cell during this fake vector approach, and we are going to use LNAV to intercept the final approach course. Next approach, I'm going to show you what happens if you are on the VNAV from the beginning and you start to extend the flaps and disagree with the speeds and the track that you selected on the FMC. So that's a subject for the second approach. So the first approach is standard level change and heading cell until we are on the final, and then we select LNAV and VNAV to complete the final approach. Now we are going towards Muxed. If we cross Muxed, we are going to continue on the heading, or better on the track 156. So we are being H901. We can start reducing our speed. So I'm going to set flap up speed. So again, the airplane arrests the rate of descent to reduce the speed to 220. Once it reaches 220, it's going to start the descent again. Okay, we extend the flaps 1, and we can bring down the speed to flaps 1 maneuvering speed. Okay, and now from this point, ATC requested us heading 250. So heading cell and right turn 250. One thing we are going to do now, we are going to select HH901, intercept course, the final one, 336. So we have a line on the final. Okay, now we select flaps 5. We keep going down. Reduce the speed to flap 5 speed, which is 180 knots. And now, once we finish this turn, ATC requests us to turn right heading 300 to intercept the RNV 34 right. So we select heading 300. The airplane is going to reach 3,000 feet. So we speed and out, and we are on the intercept heading. We can arm LNAV. So LNAV is armed. And now we are at the platform altitude 3,000 feet. Let it stable at 3,000 feet. It's coming down 3,000 feet. Okay, now we select VNAV. Once we select VNAV, the speed window closes. So we are going to open the speed window intervention, speed intervention 180 knots. We keep 180 knots. And we are on path. Why we are on path with the speed window open? Because we have the flaps extended. We are on the approach mode. Once we have VNAV path or VNAV out or any kind of VNAV, we can select our minimums, which is 440 feet. Okay, so I let the airplane stabilize at 3,000 feet initially, which is the platform altitude for the RNAV. I engage VNAV path, and then I set the minimums on the altitude. We are 2 miles to the final. We can set gear down, flaps 20, and reduce the speed to flaps 20 speed. Right now, the airplane is going to cross HH901 at 3000 and follow a 3-degree glide path down to 63 feet to cross the threshold. So the airplane just started the descent right now. Note, we still have VNAV path, there was no change to this. Now we are stable on the final. Anytime we are 300 feet or more below the missed approach altitude, we can set the missed approach altitude and the airplane is going to keep going down on the VNAV path. So the missed approach altitude is 4,000. We are 1,400 now below missed approach altitude. So we can come and select altitude 4,000 feet for the go around. Note, still VNAV path. The airplane still goes down towards runway 34 right. We had radio altimeter alive at 2,500 feet radio altitude. Okay, just to show you a couple of things now, around 2,000 feet, we're going to select flaps 30 for our approach, and we can reduce our speed to approach speed, which is VREF 140 plus 5 knots. I'm going to arm the speed brake as well. So as you can see, we have message speed brake armed. And that's it. Now we can check the landing checklist. Landing checklist is complete because we have the speed brake armed, landing gear is down, and the flaps are at 30. So every RNAV approach, we follow the lateral track on the lateral navigation according to the FMC, and we follow the final glide path on VNAV path according to the glide path on the FMC. So remember, you need LNAV and VNAV for your approach. It's better when you select VNAV to always open the speed window and make the speed that you want. Now we cross 1,000 feet stable. And another thing you have to remember, to get the airplane coming down on the path, you have to select your minimums on the altitude, on the MCP, on the mode control panel, on your autopilot. You need to select your minimums. Okay? Once you are 300 feet below missed approach altitude, you can select missed approach altitude and keep going down. One thing I'm going to do right now very quickly is to set the minimums on the captain side as well. Okay? So at 80 feet, to the minimums, you hear approaching minimums.
Approaching minimums.
That's the approaching minimums. And on the minimums, you hear minimums.
Minimums.
So at that point, you need to be visual with the runway. And the last 200 feet, you need to be flying manually. We are not happy with this approach. So right now, we are going to go around. So we say go around, pressing toga. We have thrust, LNAV, toga. And now we retract flaps to 20. Now positive rate, and we have gear up. At this point, your company SOP may change or not. There are two options. At 1,000 feet, we start retracting flaps and accelerating the airplane. Some other companies, they go all the way up to the go-around altitude, and they do it at the go-around altitude. Personally, I think it's better to do it around 1,000 feet, especially when you don't have terrain, because it's a better smooth transition to your missed approach altitude. So thrust rep, VNAV speed, airplane starts accelerating, and we can retract once we cross the flaps 20 to flaps 5. Once we cross flaps 5 to flaps 1, that's 1000 to level up. And once we cross flaps 1 speed with a nice trend, increasing speed, we set the flaps up. And we are going towards our missed approach. Speed, VNAV path. That means the airplane is reaching 4,000 feet and it's keeping 230 knots. That's the missed approach, 230 knots. That's the missed approach speed on the chart. Okay, now we can do again after takeoff checklist. After takeoff checklist is complete, and we are going to do a couple more. So at this time, I'm going to select RNAV 3 for right with no transition. So we start from Lagma. Okay, so I'm going to actually for this one, I'm going to select again RNAV 3 for right from Muxet, and I will take the airplane to fly direct to Muxet now. So I execute right turn to Muxet. And we go up to 8,000 feet. Thrust flight level change, and I'm going to reduce speed to 220 just to make a shorter way to 8,000 feet. Same approach, same minimum, same briefing. So we can do the descent checklist to recall. Is checked. Notes, no notes checked. Auto brake 3. Landing data VRF 30, 140, minimum value 434, and approach briefing is complete. Descent checklist is complete. So I just pressed the altitude intervention, so it will keep our cruise altitude at 8,000 feet. And we can even set to 20 knots at cruise speed. On the descent page, we can also select to 20 knots below 10,000 feet. It should allow us to do it. 30 at 10,000. Oh, it's because we are already below 10,000 feet, so we select 220 as the descent speed, which makes more sense. Okay, now we execute. I'm going to increase the rate of climb to 3,000 feet just to get to 8,000 faster. Speed out, and now VNAV. So we have VNAV path, and it says reset Mcp Altitude because we are about to start our descent. Okay, so I'm going to select 3,000 feet cleared by ATC now. Idle. At this approach, we are going to keep VNAV path all the way down. So we are going to make this approach the way it is. LNAV and VNAV is already engaged. So our main goal for this approach is to keep LNAV and VNAV and use the airplane resources to keep the speed and bring us down nicely and gently to the same approach through Mcp and Lagma. We have hold now, so the throttle is on hold, or the throttles are on hold. The speed is slightly increasing, we have 233 knots. I'm going to select from this position flaps 1, and I'm going to open the speed window. Note speed and VNAV path. Again, we have the flaps extended, so on the VNAV, it will always be VNAV path. I reduce the speed to flaps 1 speed, or around 200 knots in this case. As we are cabin ready, as we are on the path for the descent, I'm going to select already the minimums. That's the easiest way to do it. When you have VNAV path and you are clear for the approach, you set the minimums. You are on the path. Now you just extend your flaps the way you need to comply with this approach. Flaps 5, we reduce to 180 knots, or the selected speed is 180 knots. Why the airplane is not reducing very fast? Because it's keeping the path. It's going down 700 feet per minute to keep the path. Now it's reducing because the path reduces to cross Mcp around 5,021 feet, and then continues towards Lagma to cross 3,000 or above, 180 knots, and the Hotel 901 at 3,000 feet, 180 knots. Always, every turn, we keep the heading bug on the center. So at this time we are on the path, the speed 210 knots, slightly high now, 130 feet. Now we are on profile again. As we turn to the final course will be 336. We're going towards Lagma, and shortly we are going to start a right turn towards HH901. As we are going to intercept final from here, I'm going to select flaps 15 to help on the speed control, and we can bring the speed down to 160 knots. So now we are intercepting the final approach course. That's the intermediate approach from Lagma to HH901. We are 4.1 miles to HH901, crossing 4,000 feet. We are 32 feet high at this point. Again, the flaps 15 was just to arrest some speed, to maintain 160 knots on the approach now. So you are going to see at this approach differently from the first one. On the first one we were at 3,000 feet, and at 3,000 feet we intercept the final approach course, and then at HH901 we start the descent towards the runway. At this one we are already on the path, and we'll be crossing HH901 going down. Approaching the final approach fix, gear down, and flaps 20. The flaps 20 speed is already there. Speed brake is armed. So notice it crossed 901 already descending. You see it's a constant descent now. Okay, we are on the final approach. Missed approach is 4,000, so that means we are more than 300 feet below the missed approach altitude. Again, we can select the missed approach altitude, 4,000 feet, and the airplane keeps going down on the VNAV path. We still have to select flaps 30. We are going to do it now, a bit early. Then we are going to reduce our speed to
2,500.
145, which is our approach speed. Flaps extending to 30, speed reaching 145. And we can do the landing checklist. I missed approach checklist. So approach checklist, altimeter is 1013, approach checklist complete. And landing checklist is complete. So everything is set. So on this second approach, just for you to review, we kept LNAV and VNAV towards the entire approach. We extend the flaps to maintain the speed under control, and we open the speed window to control the speed the way we want it. Okay. This time I'm going to start the missed approach now. So go around, thrust, toga, toga, flaps 20, and we can use thrust rep and VNAV speed again to start retracting our flaps. Now flaps 5, flaps 1, LNAV is engaged, and flaps up, vertical speed, I'm going to set 1000 feet per minute on the climb, just to make it more comfortable to the passengers. So now I'm going to show you a couple of mistakes that we do on the approach. I already showed you one approach where we were going down to the platform altitude and then engaging VNAV. The second one, I used the VNAV all the way through. So this time I'm going to select again ILS, is the RNAV, 3 for right, through position Mach set. We have out. I'm going to select now 10,000 feet, and we are going to use thrust, flight level change speed, going up to 10,000 feet. I'm going to select direct to Mach set now. That's our turn pretty much to a downwind on 3 for right towards Mach set. Two 120 knots. Ten thousand 220 knots. On the descent we have the same. So now one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be high on this approach. I'm going to select the descent again with 250 knots for the descent. On the VNAV on cruise page for flight level or for 10,000 feet, I will select 250 knots as well. Direct Muxed, and we can take it, keep going up to 10,000 feet. My goal is to be high on the approach. Okay, again, selecting 3,000 feet. I'm going to select VNAV. So we have speed and VNAV path. Thrust flight level change speed just to get back to the path very quickly. Extending some speed brake. Okay, we are catching the path and the speed, so I'm going to engage speed and VNAV path. So let's say at this point, ATC requested us to reduce to 220 knots. So I open the speed window because we don't have the flaps out. We have idle and VNAV speed. I reduce to 220 knots. So it's not VNAV path anymore. It's VNAV speed. And eventually we are going to stay high on this approach. Hold. That means the thrust levers are in idle and not changing anymore. For some reason we are not staying high. We reduce. And I'm going to select a different approach here. I will buy some miles for us. So Muxed heading 156. Okay, I'm going to execute from Muxed 156. Going slowly down 200 feet per minute. I'm doing everything I can to stay high on the approach. So I will show you what happened when you are high on approach with VNAV speed and you select the flaps. That's not something that you want to do it. That's one of the first mistakes that we have. So I'm going to select that HH901. That's the turn to HH901. And as you can see, we are slightly high. So if I select VNAV, it goes to idle VNAV speed. I open the speed window and I'm going to maintain 290 knots. If at this time I select flaps 1, notice what I'm going to do now. Selected flaps 1, and because we just selected flaps 1 and we reduce the speed to 200 knots, once we have the flaps 1, now we have flaps 1, and we are going towards the final approach fix. Still slightly high. You will have your airplane going down to catch the path. At this case, we were not that high, so it was not too bad for it. So speed VNAV path, okay? But make sure that you don't select the flaps when you are outside your VNAV, because if you are outside your VNAV, you are not going to be able to maintain the speed and the path at the same time. Especially if you are high, the airplane will dive down to reach the path, and it's not going to follow the speed that you selected. Okay, now flaps 5. We reduce to flaps 5. Note LNAV and VNAV path. And what happens now if we don't select the minimums on the approach as we did on the other 2 times? This time we forgot to select the minimums, which will be 440 feet here. Okay, so you do all the other things. You are approaching the final approach fix. You select gear down, you select flaps 20, you reduce to flaps 20 speed or 160 knots in this case. You are nicely coming with speed, LNAV, and VNAV path. So that means the throttles are controlling the speed, the ailerons are controlling the lateral navigation, and the elevators are going to control the path. Okay? That should be, but we didn't select a lower altitude. So what happened is the airplane cannot descend because we didn't give the airplane a command, a clearance to go down. So the VNAV path changes to VNAV out. So what you have to do is very quickly select your minimums 440 and press on the altitude intervention to bring the airplane back to VNAV path. So the airplane is going to pitch down a little bit. So the amount of pitch down required to catch the path will be proportional to the amount of time that you delayed your minimum
2,500.
selection. If you delayed it too much, it's going to keep 3000 until you select the lower altitude, you press the altitude intervention, the airplane starts going down again. Okay, in this case, it was able to catch by 2100 feet. We are good. We can select flaps 30. Oh, we didn't have the gear, so I'm selecting the gear now and reducing the speed to 145. My mistake, I didn't select the gear. I thought I had selected the gear earlier on with the flaps 20. I didn't. So now we have the gear down, the config gear warning message is gone. Okay, again, now that you selected your minimums, you are on the path, the airplane is going down. Don't forget at this time now about selecting the missed approach altitude. Again, 4,000 feet. Okay, let's say you selected the minimums and you didn't select your missed approach altitude. So what happened is You go around, thrust, toga, toga, flaps 20, speed check, flaps 20, positive rate, gear up. You have time to select your missed approach altitude now if you forgot it. So if you didn't, do it now. But if you still don't remember to select your missed approach altitude, there is a high chance that you are going to burst that altitude. And to make it more attractive, I'm going to select the full missed approach or a full go around thrust, pressing toga again. So we have thrust ref now instead of thrust. So we have a full go around thrust. That's a lot of thrust for this plane. As you can see, now I'm going to start retracting the flaps. If not, we are going to have the flaps extension. There you see the overspeed for the flaps now. And as you can see, the airplane doesn't stop climbing at 4,000 feet. You didn't select your missed approach altitude. So if that happens, select now and use thrust flight level change speed. So it's bringing the throttle down. So that may happen really fast on the 777 if you are light and if you have full go around thrust. So first thing, don't use full go around thrust if you don't need. Second thing, make sure you have your altitude selected there. The third thing, as the airplane starts accelerating, make sure you retract the flaps. You can always override the thrust lever as an option. Okay, so this is the RNAV approaches. So some common errors that we do. So speed, vertical speed, flight level change to 50 knots. And the last one before our landing, RNAV 3 for right through Mach set. Mach set, we execute. We have actually Mach set at 5,000 or above and 220 knots. 220 slash 5,000 or above. And we execute. So we go towards Mach set. Yes, we do have insufficient fuel. That came out when we reach 5 tons. So now we cancel the alternate and our final reserve is 3.1 tons as an example. We are committing to Doha, so we don't have the insufficient fuel message again. Going to push this climb again, 3,000 feet per minute. That's Mach set. And we am going to select here 10,000 feet. We should be already on the descent. Out, so we are reaching 10,000 feet. That's 10,000 feet. I'm going to select now 5,000 is the Mach set altitude. So 5,000. And I'm going to select VNAV. idle, and VNAV speed. Notice that at this time, we don't have VNAV path because we are high on the approach, so the airplane is going to reduce the thrust lever to idle, and it's going to keep the VNAV speed, so our VNAV descent speed is 240 knots. How we can go back to this profile? We can use the speed brake, or we can use the gear, we can use both, or we can change our mode to keep going down as faster as we can. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to even reduce to 220 knots, and we are going to be even higher on the approach. So at this time, and the last one, the last approach that we are doing, I will be really high to show you how the airplane behaves when VNAV speed becomes VNAV path because you are on the approach logic and you are too high on the profile. So 220 knots, that's the speed for Mach set. After takeoff, checklist is there. Descent checklist, recall checked, notes checked, auto brake 3, landing data flaps 30, we have 140, minimum battle 434, approach briefing complete, approach checklist, altimeters 1013, approach checklist is complete, the next one is the landing gear, and the speed brake is already armed. I'm not using it for now. I'm 2,872 feet high on the approach. So at this time, we will let the airplane transition alone to the VNAV path. Once we sequence the first fix to the approach, we will have a turn here from Maxet to Lagma. As you can see later on, I will be able most probably to comply with the stabilization criteria, but we are going to need the gear, we are going to need the speed brake, and everything that we didn't do so far. We kept the airplane too high. Okay, so now Lagma is 180 knots, so to get 180 knots, I need to extend flaps 1. I reduce the speed to 200 and I extend flaps 5. With flaps 5 I can reduce the speed to 180, which is the approach speed over Lagma. So 180 is there, that's the maximum speed over Lagma. Note we are still high. VNAV speed, bringing the speed down to 180. So most probably it will never catch the path. We came so high that it's never catch the path. Okay, so first thing, we extend the speed brake. We are already late for that, but in any case, we can try to do it. Platform altitude is 3000 for now. We overshoot the final because of our ground speed. We are at the correct indicated speed, but we are higher, so that's why. Retracting the speed brakes again. We are high, right? So speed brake, full speed brakes, flaps 15, bringing the airplane down to 3,000 feet. That's it, we keep going down. We are going to cross HH 901, 3,000 or above. So minimums 440. We are crossing HH 901, 600 feet high. We need to reduce the speed to 160. We are still high. So to catch the path now, gear down. We have the fuel quantity low because we reach 2000 on the main tanks. We are going to land at this time, so I'm going to cancel this and we do the fuel quantity if we go around again. Now the path is coming. Going to retract the speed brake and arm it. We have speed, VNFF. So now we are on the path.
2,500.
Radio altimeter is alive. Select flaps 20. We are at flaps 20 speed. So as you could see, if you know how to manage with the speed brake and the gear down, you can be high on the profile and still make it. Okay, and once we are on the profile, the airplane catches the path. Now we are about to cross 2,000 feet, so we select flaps 30 for landing. Just checking the approach speed now, it's 143, reference is 138. So we bring down to 143. And we can do, when we open the checklist, because we have one checklist, the fuel quantity there, that's not the one that we want, so we don't do it anything with it now. We just select normal. So normal, landing checklist is complete. We have time to run the fuel quantity low. So condition, the fuel quantity low is in the main tank. Objective, to decide if a fuel leak is suspected and to ensure that all fuel is available for use. Note, avoid high nose up altitude. Make thrust changes slowly and smoothly. This reduces the change of uncovering fuel pumps. The fuel low message may be caused by a fuel leak. No, it's because we were on the approach. Fuel leak is suspected. No. We open any crossfeed, so we are going to stop the checklist now. We are going to close, and if we go around, we continue from here. Missed approach altitude, not to forget,
1,000.
4,000 feet, and we are stable. So now back to the standard screen. This is going to be our landing. So I will let the plane flies automatically to 300 or 200 feet. We need to be manually flying for the last 200 feet on any RNAV approach. When we don't have land 3 or land 2, we cannot go below 200
Pod
feet with the
approaching
autopilot
minimums.
engaged.
Minimums.
Minimums, and we continue.
300.
Okay, manual flight. Flight director. We are slightly high. We keep
200.
going down.
100. 50. 40.
Sync rate.
10.
And something happens to our simulator. I'm going to stop it here. Guys, I'm not going to lose all this video because something happened to the sim at the last time. So thank you so much. You could see everything that we need for RNAV approaches. Thank you so much for following this Desvio Bússola, our YouTube channel about the 777 RNAV approaches. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye bye.